Hello and welcome to Shaman Sister Sessions, episode 74. I'm Michelle Hawk and I'm here with my shaman sister, Katherine Bird, in person. This happens only a couple times a year and it is so great whenever it does. So we are extra pleased to be sharing this content with you live together. And today we have a wonderful special guest that I am so excited to invite into this conversation, Andrea Leda. And she is joining us for a conversation on the lunar consciousness of grief. Andrea and I have known each other for a couple of years now, and our connection has continued to deepen and grow in friendship, in collegial capacity, in mentorship work, and I am always so grateful for the wonderful perspective and resonance that she holds. So thank you so much for joining us today, Andrea. I'm so glad.
Yes. Thank you. I'm excited. This is a topic, I mean, I'm smiling. It's not really a topic you think I would be so excited about, but I'm really excited to talk about this.
Absolutely. And that's great. You know, it's like playing in that polarity of how can we bring just as much excitement to our grief work as we do to the fun parts, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Maybe I'm just a sucker for punishment, but that's
yeah, that I enjoy a little bit of pain sometimes. Yeah, no, it's not all, as we'll discuss today, I'm sure it's not all dark.
Oh, no.
There's some good stuff in there.
Absolutely. Well, and the lunar consciousness aspect too, I know I'm really excited to delve into that together and to give people a little bit of just a background of what we've been doing so far this month. We have spent our last several episodes working on different.
You're so close.
We have to stay close.
So far away.
Right.
Oh, well, there you are.
Yeah, I'm right here.
We've been really diving in deeply this past month, working and talking about past lives and inner child work. And what was the other one?
Soul retrieval.
So yeah. It's been a very light month here. The lunar and the grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it feels like it's all of the same vein. And when we're talking about deep healing and when we're working through things that have so many different layers to them and so many different facets of what is the healing process that we're going through, it feels important to hit on all of these. So we're really happy to be rounding up the month with this topic and going into what does this mean to be going through grief and working in this other energy than most of us have been taught is what we should be doing or the right thing or the fun and beautiful, joyful thing. We in our society shun this aspect of our lives. So I think it's an important piece to bring in as we're going through these healing topic conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I'm just grateful for the platform and the chance to give a voice to something. This is the first conversation I've had in this kind of capacity around some of this work that I've been doing very personally and very personally, very intimately. But I love that. I think that this stuff, happens for bigger reasons and we are given total access to it first. And so to have this be the first doorway to get to share about that, it's perfect to me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Andrea. And so I'd love to open that door, knowing that we began this conversation a couple of months ago, inviting you to come speak with us today. And in asking you, what would you like to share? This was a very easy, this is the thing. So it's been really present for you for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're coming up on almost, not quite, but almost a year of walking through a threshold that I did not want to walk through, and I don't think anyone wants to walk through, but I feel like I was kind of kicked into it. And I think by nature of the work that I do, and we can fill those gaps in later, but I think I was primed for it. Oddly enough, grief is not something I would seek out by any means, because I don't think we know a lot about it until we're in it. And then you know all about it all at once. And I would take the experiences back in a heartbeat if it meant having some people that I love very dearly back on this planet. But I would not take back the level of potency and clarity that came and is still coming from being in something that, we call dark night of the soul or lunar consciousness, or being in the mystique or the mystery of navigating by I think navigating by moonlight is the perfect metaphor for it. I think I read that in Thomas More's Dark Nights of the Soul, and it just, I've been looking for a language to talk about this thing I've been going through, and he was the first one to give it a form that I thought really nailed it for me. So I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, this has been going on for a little bit now.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I think that when you're hitting on that piece of, it's not something that we look for usually. It's not something that we ask for. Definitely, we spend most of our time trying to avoid pain or shadow or darkness, except for some odd bugs in the bunch who are like, okay, how can I dig deeper into the darkness and the shadow that's there?
Yes.
For most people, and especially in our Western society, we have been taught to push away pain and grief and sadness and sorrow as much as we possibly can from the time we're very, very small, tiny children. We're taught to not to express those particular emotions. People are very uncomfortable with those emotions being just witnessed to them. And so we're taught that we're not appreciated or loved or seen or valued or held within the most intense expressions of our pain and our sorrow. So we discover pretty quickly how to shut that stuff off and shut it down. But it feels like when we are going through an enormously soul evolving experience, that often the processes of walking in the shadow and being in this lunar consciousness and in these flavors of grief in whatever way they show up are important initiations for us to be going through.
Yes. Yeah. Someone sent to me recently a little quote, and I don't even know where it came from, that said, these initiations are sacred life agreements, these like thresholds we cross. And I was like, oh yeah, that's really good. It does feel like a sacred life agreement. It feels like something that, because it's not given the space I feel like it deserves, we could easily miss that. And I don't think the point is to linger in it unnecessarily, but to really let it rinse you and wash over you. And I don't know if it's helpful to give details. I don't have to, because it's not about what happened so much as it's about where it's landing me. But I think it's important to have some context, if that's okay for you guys. So for those who are watching or listening who don't know me as well as Michelle and Katherine have come to know me. So in October of last year, I lost my mom to breast cancer. And then in May of this year, I lost my dad to a multitude of things, but basically COPD. Which, so both of them leaving this planet within 7 months and 11 days of each other, and both from dysfunctions of this heart center right here, which does not, it's just fascinating to me. And I haven't even dug into that yet, because that's so far down the path of where I am. But to have witnessed and done things in their passing that I think I'm so grateful for. I mean, I did what's called a death watch for both of them, where you basically hold vigil while the body dies and the soul, leaves and goes home. And that, the moment my mom passed, was the most peaceful energy I've ever felt in my entire life. I mean, I cannot describe it. It felt like the warmest sensational womb space energy I have ever come into contact with. It didn't last long. It was a few hours of being in that with her body, and I could feel her in the room, like watching her. And the point being, that was my entrance into grief, was something so positive, which was bizarre. Like the whole thing has been such a paradigm from the beginning, and my dad knew how sick he was, and he made a pretty conscious decision to exit when he did. And there was no surprise to it. But even then, we were having very conscientious conversations about this threshold he was crossing, and his, ascent or descent, as you will, out of this life for weeks until he passed. And in both instances, they were, both on hospice, essentially at the very end. And hospice homes are some of the most loving spaces I've ever had the ability to walk through. Here it is, a home that is designed for death. And you'd think it would be dark and sad and heavy and like just heart like wrenching. And it was some of the most loving, uplifting things I got to witness in that experience was being inside those spaces. So it really got me thinking about, maybe this isn't what we thought it was. Maybe grief and moving through loss is not what I had anticipated it would be. And don't get me wrong, there are moments and waves that come over me that just like pummel me. You know, that experience when you're washed in a tide and you don't know where is up. That definitely happens. But there's something else that just like this veil got lifted, and this level of awareness I didn't even know was accessible as a human being just came right in. So I think part of the getting to be in spaces in that transition where people were actively talking about death was tremendously helpful. And I wish more people had resources and access to that if and when the time comes that they have to say goodbye to someone deeply important to them.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I don't know about anybody else listening in, but I had this just wave, like full body chills when you were describing your mother leaving. And really, it's such a portal moment. So you get to be present for that. And that is incredibly sacred. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for letting me. Yeah. I could talk about it all day. No one wants to hear it all day, but I could.
Well, that's what we're here for, is to like
Yep.
have a conversation about these things that we don't talk about enough. And this is, I mean, this work, this grief work and death and working in the shadow. I mean, I joke about being a sucker for punishment, and yet part of my journey for that into the shadow has been out of years of experience learning that there is just as much love and potency and inspiration in this misunderstood, like most blatantly tortured and misunderstood archetype of the shadow. And yet there is so much to learn from being there, and so much to experience, and so much to love. And it's not that it's wrong. It's not that we have to change it or fix it or move out of it, but getting to spend time there, which is that metaphor, the navigating by moonlight. So beautiful. Okay, it's not that we're leaving the darkness, we're just having this tool where everything looks a little bit different.
Yeah, because you think about nighttime and it's a little darker. Obviously it's a lot darker, and moonlight, you have to go slow. I mean, you can't rush through things the way that you're used to. You don't know what you're going to trip on or hit up against. And so you're a little bit more conscientious of where you put your foot and how you look out into that space and how you keep yourself protected. And it also casts a lot of shadows, things that you didn't know could be shadows. And so I think about like a full moon, and that like it's so, you look into and it's an orb, but the way that it casts shadow on the land, it's to walk that, you have to take your time and not be spooked by what you see. Because at first something can seem really scary and really eerie and like, oh my God, you know, by daylight, that's just a lamppost. But by night, it's like this big stalking energy that comes out of nowhere. And you have to like almost childlike get close to it and kind of inch up to it and like feel it and decide like, do I want to get cozy to that? Oh yeah, I know what that is, but right now that's not how it's presenting itself. And this is just a big metaphor for it, but that is how it feels. And I don't want to be woken up. That's the most important part for me. And I think it's why we avoid grief so much, because you can't fix it. You know, it's not like a broken heart where time can mend. And certainly with time, I will find a different level of normalcy that I just don't have access to right now. But there's no fixing this. This is a life passage, and you just go, and everyone will experience it. Every human being will lose someone, many people. And there's so many different forms of grief. And I'm talking specifically about death, but loss is its own, you know, transition, that transmutation of who you thought you were, and getting thrust into that so quickly. You learn pretty quickly where your bearings are, where they aren't, and how to figure it out when it doesn't feel real. You know, you just want to wake up, but there's no waking up, not yet.
Yeah. And it feels like such an important conversation to be having, especially for those that do see themselves as spiritual seekers, as healers, as people who are on this path and this journey of self-discovery and helping the collective to evolve, that this is something that as a collective, we have lost connection to. We've
Mm-hmm.
shunned it, we pushed it away so hard. And it is an important aspect of, as we're looking at the, you know, the rebalancing of the masculine and the feminine, to come back into that lunar energy and to respect it, and to not run from it, but to be comfortable in it, to be comfortable with sitting with the uncomfortability of the experience, and to be able to talk about it with other people, and to be able to hold space for those that are having these experiences. That this is an important piece of us as a collective going through these initiations, that not only are you having this experience, but you are contributing as you go through this experience to all of us having a greater depth of understanding and care and softness towards the parts of ourselves that are in pain and in shadow and in darkness, and going through these grief processes, which we're trying to hide most of the time in our regular life. We're trying to
Mm-hmm.
look happy and successful and pleasant, and not expressing what's there for fear of being rejected. And you know, we're going through that process of reintegrating all of these things that we've been rejecting for so long.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because as someone who works in, I guess if we could chunk up, we could call it self-development, even though that like doesn't exactly resonate for me. If we were to, right, but if we were to look at the big picture, that's essentially the industry that I'm in. And it became apparent so fast, and I don't know how I missed this, how much we anchor to the light, and how much all of this work, and I've been joking and mostly sarcastically, a lot of funny humor comes out in a dark night, that we are riddled with affirmation and positivity, and like staying in contact with high noon at all times, which just makes you sick and exhausted. And it's not practical, nor is it's not even remotely integrated. It just misses a whole piece of ourselves. And I think it's something that I'll call it my industry, but I guess just as a practitioner, I think as a group, we could do a much better job of doing, is holding space for the things that on the other side of the books and the other side of the classes and the other side of these podcasts and emails and things that people are producing, that we actually get down into a little bit more of the groundedness, that's not actually what's happening for all people at all times. And I think if we don't start giving more spaciousness to what is happening, and that is equally as potent to the, like, just the sharpening of your soul, then we are going to be half-hearted in a way. You know, we can't be full light all the time. It's not how our seasons are built. It's not how our body is built. It's not how nature is built. And we seem to be the only sentient being that just rejects that like rhythm. So I'm grateful for it, because I don't think I would have sought it out any other way if I weren't just like plopped into it, you know?
Usually we don't.
Nope. Nope.
And these underworld initiations, you know, speaking about the shamanic death and rebirth cycle, the death happens before the rebirth. And this is something, these cycles of power, you know. So for those of you tuning in, if you'd like more context on that, Kat and I did a few episodes last year on the lunar and the solar cycles of power. And so looking really specifically at these energetic movements, they reflect polarity. And polarity, like the polarity creates opportunity for movement, because there is tension, there is contrast. And when we're in the middle, or when we're all on one side, there's no potential for movement, there's no potential for change, there's stagnation and fixation. So looking at, either we are moving and living and growing and experiencing and changing, or as soon as we become still, and I don't mean this in the, you know, there is stillness, and that is wonderful, there's a positive stillness, but like the stagnant stillness, as soon as we become stagnant, we are dying, and in a bad way. And so how can we continue to move through this exploration of polarities, knowing that it is vital, not only for our emotional well-being, but for our physical, our energetic well-being, and having that polarity within us and the cycle of energy moving within us, because that's the only way that we move through our lives, as opposed to stagnating our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. So what, Andrea, I'm curious, what are some of the things that if you feel any things that you'd love to share, any gems from this investigation? Is there anything coming up, anything that you feel like, I wish people knew this or experienced this? And maybe some of these things can only come from that personal inquiry, but is there anything that if you could impart and save anyone any bit of this investigation, what would you like to share?
That's a good question. It's gonna suck. I'm sorry. It's gonna be bad, but it isn't gonna be as bad as you anticipate. And that is something, the anxiety of it is significantly harsher than the reality of it. And you realize, and anyone who's gone through loss, this doesn't just have to be loss of a loved one, but a partnership or a business or a community or something that was really important to your identity. So anything that shakes up who you thought you were or how you were defining your life. Anytime that happens, it's more the anticipation of who you will not be anymore that is scarier than, because you can't anticipate what it'll create for you. I remember the day my mom passed, it was super early in the morning. It was like 6 a.m. So we had the whole day. And I remember that evening before going to bed, I've not ever been that distraught. And I remember thinking, if this is how it's going to be, I literally don't think I can do this. Like, I can't walk around in the world just crying all the time. And there was a little voice that said, just go to bed, just go to sleep. And I went to sleep and I woke up and it was like this just bath, like I had just rinsed off and all this just came off. And it was still sad and devastating and weird and confusing, but not horrible, not like shake your life to the core where you can't take a foot forward horrible. It just doesn't land like that. And I realize, we are hardwired to endure grief. We are hardwired for that balancing of the way. If we look at a yin and yang symbol, and it's that feminine, right? I'll come back to your point, but there's the white and the black, and that dark yin, restorative, feminine, water, cooling, sleepy, moonlight energy, you're built for that. And we don't seek it, right? Except when we're sleeping. But even then, it's like we're restoring to gear up for what's to come. And so if anything, it's get to know that side of yourself in any way you can, because it's like just there for you all the time. And I had to kind of fall into it backwards, like arms and legs flailing, because I didn't want to go. But it is completely, it's that motherly, it just holds, like all it does, just holds, just like mom, it's this utter nurturing thing. So you're built for it. Your resiliency will meet you pretty quickly. It doesn't mean that you don't want to go back to what it was. But I think the other part of that is staying forward and recognizing that these things don't happen, I don't think, by accident. I know there is absolutely a contract in play. There's no way that there isn't. I can feel it like just lighting up every day. And I trust in that. So it's having faith in what is and what got you to what is, and knowing that that transition is on purpose. And I'm not in any particular fashion needing to find out what that purpose is. I've had a lot of people tell me, like, it's all in good timing and there's a reason and there's a plan. I'm like, that's great. And there may be, but I'm not in any way needing to know that right now, because it's just, I'm not there yet. I'm still in the longing and the darkening. Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to Matt Kahn's new book yesterday on the plane ride to Portland, and can't just land on it, but he was talking about how we oftentimes, as spiritual people, we somehow are holding some sort of marker that if we're doing everything right and we're doing our prayers and our mantras and our meditation that are things that somehow we're going to avoid pain, somehow we're going to avoid discomfort and disharmony in our lives, and that there's something wrong somehow if disharmony occurs. And but that really, if you are on this spiritual path, hey, check it out, you're going to get some tough lessons, and it's going to show up, and it's going to show up in ways that you're not expecting, and that these are the soul's moments when it gets to be thrust into its next phase of evolution. And these are the times that we get to grow the most, because we can have our mom and forget that she even almost exists out there, and talk to her every once in a while, or whatever. But going through that process, it upends everything to such a great extent that you're forced to look at your relationship with her, and your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with your lineage, your relationship with everything, with your own feminine nature, with everything that you are, instead of kind of quietly avoiding the things that wouldn't come up otherwise, and being, doing your mantras and sitting in the light.
Yep. Yeah. I think if we look at some of our most poignant spiritual teachers in the last 150 years, I can't think of a single one who hasn't endured just incredible sufferings. I mean, look at someone like the Dalai Lama, who's been ostracized from his country since he was a kid. I mean, and watch his people just be martyred for it. So that's one example. And yet he is the most compassionate, I think, loving entity, one of the most loving entities on our planet today. So then you have to look at, well, if you're walking a spiritual path, and for me, that's keeping my eyes as open as possible and not making assumptions about what is and is not, but staying in content and staying in context with my I am, and with the way and that path of least resistance, and finding that balance of polarity, then I'm probably going to endure a ton. Like, that's just, and not all souls do, and some souls do more than others. And I have no opinion about it either way. Honestly, that doesn't get to me. It's the okay, this is in my nature for something. So don't miss what it's for, right? Like, don't just like, okay, this happened. Oh yeah, this like small, not so small, massive thing happened in my life, but I'm just going to keep on exercising and doing yoga and having friends over. And it's like, no big deal. I just like go to the cemetery once a year and pay homage. Like, no. Like, it is completely uprooted everything I know to be true about my life and my family of origin. And it's got me questioning things about my connection to my feminine nature, to my sense of a woman, to my goddess nature, to generations of women that, my mother, my mother's mother, my mother's mother's mother, who all endured horrible, what I would consider dysfunctions in the body from lack of self-love and lack of self-awareness and lack of desiring like to be who they are. And I feel like I have a responsibility to pull that out and not continue it unconsciously. So yeah, it's a doorway. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, these underworld initiations offer the windows into the things that otherwise I don't think we would seek to look for. And I was struck as, I was kind of feeling into that space of what is it like to be invited into something that we're not necessarily seeking, but that we desperately need. And I think that part of, one other thing that I would like to pull out and very specifically name was in your experience of witnessing your mother passing and having that blissful, that peaceful experience was almost to this like letting, and moonlight in itself comes from the light of the sun. It's not to say like the light of the moon, it's not glowing itself as its own body. It's reflecting the light of the sun. So everything that is cast into moonlight also, even though it is in the darkness, it also holds the frequency of the light, and vice versa. Like the sun casts shadows too. So knowing that these parts exist within each other, just like in the yin yang symbol, there's the black dot and the white dot within the shape of the part itself, because they hold each other. And this, I think it's very telling that your beginning of this initiation cycle was in such love of like, here is something very comfortable. You are going to be held. Let us hold you. Let us welcome you into this, and know that this is going to be hard, but knowing that this is still in deep. And sometimes we get that, sometimes we don't, sometimes it's a little bit more abrupt, and that's okay too. But really treating it, I really love the idea of treating it as an invitation instead of as a rude awakening. And I think that's, like, again, reframing, how are we relating to our shadow work? How are we relating to that dark night of the soul, to that initiation cycle? When we can welcome it in, maybe we get to let ourselves be held a little more.
Yeah. There's a great metaphor in a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And he talks about, it's, our shadows or our triggers or our pain points are like having this stinging, poisonous thorn stuck in your skin. And we spend our entire life covering it up and protecting it and putting barriers and boundaries around it. It's like, no one get close. Like, don't touch it. Like that's the hurt. Don't come any closer. Instead of taking the damn thing out, instead of pulling it out and then like mending where you've been like harboring this pain for so long. So it's, I don't know if that's even relatable, but I think about the stuff that, my birthday was over the weekend, and that was like trigger as I'm going through the first birthday without and I miss my father deeply, but without my mother, and this like threshold, like she brought me in, it's the first one I have to like move forward without her. And it was just washing over me, and there's no stopping it. And I desperately wanted it to go away. And yet it's just telling of where I am. Okay. Like, I'm hurting. There's an ache, there's a missing, there's a longing for something. We could call that a shadow. We could call that grief. We can call it whatever we want, but being in contact with, this is not going to kill me. This could enliven me. And right now, this really hurts. Okay, I'm in it. Like, there's nothing more to say about it. Instead of like, just, I'm going to go drink, or I'm going to go eat, or I'm going to go do anything possible to get out of this pain. Well, the pain is like, it's a part of me because I was loved so dearly by a woman for so long. And I think when we miss those aspects of ourselves, it speaks so highly to where we've been in life and how deep that entrenchment goes. So part of that was pulling out that little thorn and saying, I can't fix this, but I can stop triggering myself and just be with it and mend it, and then give it the love and nurturement it deserves, putting the balm on it and wrapping it up and treating it as something that truly is going through its own healing process and needs some space to do that.
I feel like I want a mic drop. I want everybody to really like feel that. Where are we? And I'm taking a moment just to notice, like, where do I still have thorns that I'm protecting or that I'm avoiding pulling out, or even self-punishing and like digging them in deeper a little bit. Yeah.
Flicking it. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also in awareness of, as you're speaking, like I could feel this energy and this rush of the energy that is moving through your lineage and through all of these women, and that your grief is not just this moment, is not just I miss my mom. It's that you being present in that portal and being available, being open and willing to be present to that, and so connected to her in that moment, and giving an opportunity for all of that pain to move through and to go through this as a healing process of not just your thorn, right? It's like you need a sign, not just my thorn. It's like all the women time,
all of our thorns.
Yep. I love that. That's a great mantra. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, there's so much truth to that. So much truth to that. And yeah, that just hit me so hard. Yeah. There's a lineage that I'm working through, and it's something I don't have total access to yet, but watching it take my mom and watching it take her mom and multiple other women, specifically in my mom's lineage. I've known since I was a little girl, there was something there for me to, I guess, break, or not break as in like it's needs to change, but redirect. Like there's like, it's time to redirect something. And I feel like she raised me in a way specifically in some aspect to do just that. And had she not passed when she did, had my dad not passed when he did, I mean, who knows that this would be the place I was coming from now, or working from, or in my own life. So it's not just my thorn. Definitely not.
Beautiful. I'm super curious of, we haven't really talked about like what it is you do in the world and these pieces.
Yeah.
You know, whenever we're going through these things and we are these leaders and guides, it's not like we go into an office and we're filling out a form and we're doing the same thing every day. All of a sudden, the work that we're doing changes. Can you share a little bit about how you witnessed that within yourself of what's the shift that you've seen in what you're wanting to offer or doing with people or these pieces?
Yeah, thank you. It's changed everything. I mean, I say it's changed everything. Like I have this feeling that externally it looks like my life has just been totally hobnobbed in chaos. And the feedback I've gotten is that I've just been like this steady. So it's very calming to hear, but internally it's shifted everything for how I show up when I work. And in my work, I have these very conscientious, personal, intimate conversations, these really rich conversations that help people shift their relationship mostly to themselves and give themselves the spaciousness they need to do whatever their magic is in the world. And we can call that a number of things: coaching, counseling, mentoring. There's lots of tools and things involved, but mostly I'm sitting with people in some of the most poignant moments of their life when it's yes or no. And they come to me in that I'm not sure I can place the why me, do I have what it takes, is usually the question my clients are asking. And my job is to sit with that for as long as it takes for them to answer it for themselves, whatever that answer might be. So when this all happened, I made a vow to myself that I would not separate the two, because that would be, I think, disrespectful to myself and to my process, to my parents and my family, but also that my work is not done in isolation. And if this is my soul contract and my purpose to do the work that I do in the world, who would I be to think that it had nothing to do with this immense loss? Like, hello, of course they go together. They're like, they sync up. And in fact, I think this experience has been like this little secret key that was missing to unlock something that would not have been unlocked otherwise. So at first it was really small. I mean, I took a lot of space in the beginning with both experiences. And in both experiences, I was teaching. The first one, I was on a retreat in Hawaii when we got the call that my mom's organs were shutting down. And so I left this event that I had been hosting and flew across the ocean. And in the second instance, I came home. I had been with my dad for almost a month, and I came home for 4 days to teach an immersion. And I got on the plane and we were taking off literally the minute that he passed. So there's no way that these things are not connected. So at first it was things like I would write about it and share my story and try to bring some awareness to other people that if you're going to be in my work or come be a part of my world, this is one of the lenses that I'm currently looking through, and I can't shut it off. So it doesn't mean you have to be there with me or that you have to come into some dark night of yourself, but know that the perspective I have on this work is going to have a little bit of that edge to it. And if that doesn't speak to you, that's beautiful. That's a piece of discernment, but we have to have some more honest conversation about that, and bringing more of that. This isn't all about the light. This isn't all about the high noon energy. There's a piece of cool, calm water here that I want people to tap into, even without having that sacred life agreement to come to their doorstep as it may mine. So it's been little things here and there, but I wake up every day and feel immensely grateful that I get to have a job where there is a platform and an opportunity to do my life's work completely interchangeably with my outwardly job work, and that people have said, give me more. I mean, the more I bring this in, the more people cozy up. It's just been fascinating. I've been putting this out there and people are like inching their way in and trying to find their way into it. And I don't know why. I didn't think it would be attractive. I thought it would be like a big barrier, but I think there's some truth to it. I mean, I've never met a single person who hasn't enjoyed something really awful in their life that they would rather have not experienced. So I think in the nature of development work that I do, I have a duty and a responsibility, and I think an ethical requirement to give this voice and to give it voice on behalf of other people until they can do that for themselves. So yeah, it's changed it just a little bit. By a little, I mean a lot.
In a very, very wonderful way,
Thank you.
As someone who has witnessed this transition, I think it models integrity in terms of, showing up, and we as practitioners, this is part of our calling, right? Is there is no separation between the personal work and the external work. And so I think really letting, being from a place of empowered informing of, hey, this is the filter that you're signing up for right now. If you are signing up to come into my field, this is part of the energy that I'm holding, and letting that be okay, letting that be a part of your magic. And really, I think it's so wonderful that people are resonating with that. And I think that really speaks to, what are we ready for collectively? What are we subconsciously so hungry for, or maybe consciously hungry for? Maybe I want to know that I'm not alone in this. I feel ashamed of my grief, but I don't know how to express it or who to talk to. I was shut down for that. I feel like I can't share what's really on my heart. So then by letting that be transparent and letting that be that raw, there's that raw life force. It's like this, almost the image that I have right now is a little bit graphic, but it's, imagine if you gash a major artery, you are spouting blood. I mean, it's that raw life force just coming out. There's no hiding it. And it's almost that same texture feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in my work, and I think you can both appreciate in our line of work, any kind of healing modality where you're sitting with people in some of their greatest moments and some of their not so great moments. I think at first I felt like I had to present this version that had her shit together, because who wants to learn from or be a client of someone who's going through something really rough and really rocky, and wanting to tuck it away in a more convenient box so that I didn't have to be so forthright with it. But you're right, it gushes out of you. And I had this experience of just deciding that, no more bullshit in my work, no more trying to give you what I think you need, no more trying to put it in a form that I think is easier to digest. I don't have, sounds so weird. I don't have the time. I just don't have it anymore. I don't have the patience for it. And this level of discernment rose up. And I think of discernment as like absolute clarity, and then taking action on that with complete congruency. So grounded, like crown mental systems, emotional systems, like grounded earth systems, all right there. And then moving forward from that place, and there being no apology for it. It's not abrasive, it's just honest. And I think that's innately attractive, because people don't have to guess. Like, you shouldn't be so happy. I thought you were going through a hard time. What's happening? Like, clients keep checking in on me, and it's like they want to, so I let them check in on me, and then we go back into the work. But it's that human nature of, you see someone suffering and all we want to do is, like, let's just hold that space so that someone can figure out what their boundaries are with that. And I wish more practitioners would let their life into their work. Yeah.
We've been taught that we have to be this perfection of this shining example of a completely painless, egoless, untriggered, untouchable sort of experience over here. And I found again and again that being a person and taking that pedestal away from people, because they will choose to pedestalize you because that's just the nature of the experience that you're in. Kind of ripping that pedestal off from underneath yourself and being like, hey, I'm just a human over here. Mm-hmm. And I understand where you're coming from. And being able to give that real life lessons, authentic expression and experience, being able to speak from experience. I think that it allows people to trust you more, because they're like, oh, okay, you've been through some shit, and you felt some real pain, and all right, you're okay. I trust you, instead of this sort of image that they have in their mind of someone who's so perfect that they will never live up to, because no one is that. So we all have the things that go wrong in our life, or the pain, or the the traumas. We all stub our toe and go and
and there are a lot of practitioners and a lot of people who work in the field who do tune into this podcast. So for those among you, thank you for letting your human selves into your work. And for those of you who maybe don't work in the field, let this, I invite you to take this in as well, knowing that, whether or not we're working in service directly in this capacity, we're always working in service for our communities, for our families, for everyone, merely by holding this frequency and modeling this energy. So know that, again, the collective thorns that we have, it's no good to pretend they're not there. They're definitely there. So how can we let ourselves have that, again, that enthusiasm, right? That excitement about, okay, I'm going to look at my thorns. I'm actually going to look at them, and that's going to be okay. And give other people that same permission and invitation to look at their thorns and look at all of our thorns, and let that be okay.
Yep. Hear, hear. I say cheers to that.
So at the end, we always try to give some tips and some, okay, so what are a few things that we should be aware of, or, oh yeah, that makes this a little bit easier, or
tools for integration.
How do we integrate all of this? Because it's going to happen, or it is happening maybe in some people's lives. So how do we integrate this work?
Yeah, great. Let's see. I've moved so far away from tips and tricks. It's not even funny, but I totally love their intention. And I agree. It's, how do we take this really meta conversation and make it more tangible?
Do you have any journal prompts?
Tons. Yes. I'll get to that for sure. Yeah. So something I will say for those who are, I'm not the first person to lose a parent, and I will not be the last. And I don't know why I feel the need to share this, but I will say, it is the weirdest stuff that you miss, stuff that you don't even think is stuff will become forefront. And you just I ache for just to hear my mom's voice, and I ache to see her handwriting come in the mail. It's the silliest things that in the moment are everyday things. And it's not to say go and cherish that much more, but love the people that you love that much more. Everything is impermanent. Everything is impermanent. And even in knowing my dad was dying, I couldn't access the things I wanted to ask him. And it was so torturesome, because I knew as soon as he passed, they would all just, there's all the things I wanted to ask him. And remembering that I had asked what I was supposed to ask when I was supposed to ask it, and that it was okay. And that I just needed to sit with him and cherish, sitting on the deck in the sunlight with him. And I do. And if you can make yourself be that aware in the moment of things that seem silly at the time, you will not regret it. It's just, that's the only thing I can say about pre-contemplating loss. And then on the other side of loss, no matter what kind of loss you've endured, do not keep it harbored in here or here or here in our belly or in our, those thorns. Man, they can dig in, and find either the people that can handle your expression of it, the people who do not feel the need to fix it or mend it, but are happy to just sit and receive it. Find those people. You will need them. And find a way to be in contact with your process that is nourishing. For me, that's journal writing and meditation and a little bit of prayer and movement. That's where I find, in some days, my sanity, and some days my revelation. And sit with that as much as you possibly can. And I know it's uncomfortable, but it's also oddly yummy and really comforting at the same time. And as far as prompts go, I have a bazillion, I'm sure, tucked inside my head. But for this topic specifically, it's I was just this weekend for my birthday, we were at the beach, and I found myself writing just a ton. I couldn't stop. And one of the prompts I wrote from was, what is the thing I wish I could relive? So what, it's like giving some space to the thing I want to go back to. So acknowledging there's a sense of normalcy that's been disrupted, and that's okay. There's a moment in the daytime that you love, and I want to go back to that. So what is the thing I wish I could go back to? And what is the thing I'm grateful that I'm in? So also looking at the paradigm of, but I'm inside of something that's really incredible. What do I love about this moment? And giving myself permission, even though it seems weird because it was brought on by something so sad, I'm grateful for the gifts that it's brought me, and I wouldn't take them away. So there's that paradox. And that's sometimes the yummiest parts of our life, is contending with those two things at once.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I'd love to steer back to the idea of the lunar consciousness just briefly before we close, and the idea of navigate differently, navigating by moonlight, and understand that the set of tools that we need in order to do shadow work, to do grief work, is a different set of tools than what we would require for light work. So imagine, as you are moving through this, just like, okay, I'm moving through the night. I don't have any source of light. How would you then move? You would be slow. You would be careful. You would be, allowing yourself time. You would be feeling more, physically feeling more, and being in touch here and listening more, right? So imagine what other senses and what other ways of communication and perception and navigation can we bring into these challenging times? How can we feel more? How can we hear more? How can we move slower, knowing that, as with all things, we move back to the light and then we move back to the darkness, right? Just as we have this cycle of power throughout the day, we have this cycle of power of the year, we have the cycle of power of our lives. And knowing that as we soften into being held and moving with that lunar vibration through the shadow, that is the set of tools that we need, and you already have everything that you need.
Yes. I think that's really important. You already have everything you need.
You are great.
Great. Why am I hiring you? What?
Me too. You ask the right questions.
Yes. No, I love that. I'll come right alongside that. I totally appreciate what you're saying. And you're right. The set of tools you need in a lunar experience is vastly different. And I found, for me at least, and it could be different for other people, it's been substantially more introspective. And even like the foods I'm eating and the sleep I'm getting and the kinds of movements I'm taking my body through, and stuff that used to take me a day now takes me weeks, and just being really patient that I'm not moving at the speed that one part of my brain wants me to go at. And it's kind of awesome. I mean, I get to I feel like I have this big dose of permission to just all right, I'll be back soon-ish. I'm going to be here for a while, and that's perfectly okay.
Yeah, it is that patience and permission to be exactly as you are in every moment, and to this too shall pass, but right now this is where I'm at. And
Yeah.
you know, we have such a tendency to just beat the shit out of ourselves for not living up to some sort of metric that we've picked out of the air as to how we should be showing up in every moment. And in these times especially, that metric just needs to go away so that we can be present with what's real for us, so that we're not stuffing it in and eating it away and doing all of the things which cause it to fester inside of our system.
Beautiful.
Well, I want to make sure that we're honoring everyone's time today. So I feel like we could talk about this for ever and ever. We've got 3 excited practitioners who love shadow work in the room. So. But Andrea, thank you so much for joining us. Is there, what is the best way for people to find you, reach out to you, contact you if you're interested?
Yeah, best way is just through my website. It's Andrea Leda, AndreaLeda.com. And you can sign up there, and I send beautiful, I think they're beautiful writings every week. I'm trying to keep people as in contact with this stuff as possible. And you can also contact me through there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us, Andrea. And for those of you who are curious to check out any of our past episodes or all of our past episodes, they're all up on our YouTube channel, Shaman Sister Sessions. They're also on iTunes and Stitcher. You can follow us on Facebook or sign up for our tribe, online tribe, where we send you articles and invitations and every episode directly to your inbox every single week. And that is through our website, shamansistersessions.com. What are you working on? What are you excited about?
What's next? Healers Process Retreat is coming up in a couple of weeks in Southern California. So this is a gathering of healers who are coming together to work on energetic spiritual mastery, working on their skill set, and bringing their most authentic work to the world. So next thing.
Beautiful. And my next thing is we're going on retreat starting on Thursday.
Yay!
Yay! That's why Kat's here for my I Am Alchemy course. And I see also that somebody chatted in a question that we never actually circled back around to, asking, I am is, think I space AM. I am, like that declaration of self and sovereignty. And Andrea, you were the one who initially said it. Would you like to give a 1 sentence to that?
I might have been muffling a little bit, but I was just saying, for me, spirituality is staying in contact with whatever path of least resistance that is. And for me, that comes in as simple of a form as I am. I am. I am.
Beautiful. So, Thank you. So I've got I Am Alchemy, and just wrapped up not wrapped up the project, but wrapped up inviting people into the I Am project. So if you missed that and you still want to talk to me, the project itself is full, and yet the spirit of the project is open. So go ahead and shoot me an email, michelle@joyofenergy.com, if that calls to you in helping who you remember who you are as your I Am. So Andrea, thank you so much again for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you. I'm so grateful. We're so grateful for your resonance and your rawness here. It's definitely a space where we welcome honesty and all its discomfort.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm smiling, but all the things are going on. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate it. My pleasure.
Beautiful. Thank you. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And next week we're taking off, so please don't sign on next week because we won't be here, but we will be back in August. We're taking our next Tuesday off as we recover from retreat. Yay. Thank you.
Have fun, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.